What's happening, everybody? Good to have you guys back. We're in the garage again today because it is now round 2 for Project Cyborg. You guys have seen it before. I did a quick overview of the machine. It's still in a frame, but we have suspension back on it and all that stuff. We've got an exhaust here. Basically, behind the scenes, since that first video, I've been getting things together. I've got the engine assembled, sitting on the bench right here. I'm waiting for a couple things. I found out the cam gear we had was ovaled out. It might have been adjustable. There are cam gears that you can move timing on and stuff like that, but I did notice that this one kind of looks like it was just drilled out, so I wasn't sure. I went ahead and ordered another one, but you can kind of see there it's ovaled out, and it doesn't look like it was machined that way. It looks like somebody might have just drilled it to slot it so you could, I don't know, advance timing on the cam gear. But anyway, another one's coming. New sprockets are coming. As soon as that other cam gear gets here, I can slap this engine completely together, shim it, make sure it's set, put it in the quad. That's going to be the next thing to happen. But I've also got some little things like this right here. This is just a practice T-ball. It's made of foam, but this little guy right here, I'm making a little nub because speaking with Adam, who's our double amputee, Josh Rockcamp, who's one of our single amputees, and Mitch, those guys had some good ideas on how to tailor this machine to them so that when they ride it, they can use their prosthetics properly, kind of like we use our knees to hug the tank. We're going to use this nub right here. We're basically going to put it underneath the seat cover right there so he has something to hook his prosthetic knees to, which is a great idea. That was something he and I had talked about and we kind of come up with. And then Josh had a good idea where I have some magnets actually right here. Oh, they're pretty strong too. These magnets are going to slide into our foot pegs so that those guys can put a little steel plate on the bottom of their prosthetic shoes. Basically, they have like a little steel plate they can bolt to the bottom of it, and then it should help them stick their feet down to the pegs. And we have full Nerf bars. We got a set of Wrath MX Nerfs over there, so they've got heel guards and everything, but this should help keep their feet from sliding around on the pegs. That was an issue before. I remember Adam had that problem with the LTR they rode a couple years ago now. So we're going to address that with these. But other than that, I'll go over the machine today, get the engine in there, and then get the thing hooked up. We'll basically have a running and riding quad here very shortly. Then after that, there should be one more video after this one where I get to bring it up and deliver it to these guys in its final form. You guys get to see it with graphics on it, which we're waiting, but Dirt Fiend is on it. He's got some good graphics for it. So without any more talk, let's get into the video. Engine's ready to go. What you guys can't see is underneath the towel here, I have a small chunk of 2x4 to rest the bottom of the engine case on so that I don't end up gouging anything on the empty engine mounts. There we go. Nicely. Kind of rotate it in, set it just like that. And now I can throw the pivot bolt in through the swing arm and everything to kind of anchor it in place before I put the rest of the mounts in. Nice. Now, as I start putting parts on this thing and assembling this machine, I'll go over a lot of the things that we've used and why we chose those parts to go on this machine. For example, back here, I've got this DRW sprocket guard because reaching out to Weston out there, he gave us a full complement of protection for this thing. So we have rotor guard, swing arm guard. I've even got the, like I said, rotor, I already said rotor guard, but I got the massive rotor guard over here, sprocket guard over here, chain slide. We've got the case saver, the whole works. I've even got the belly skid. And then we have some Slick Rock gear front rotor guards. So that's a good thing to have on here. Excited to have those guys on board, but protection is the name of the game, especially out here on the West Coast. I'm going with stock sprocket sizes because I don't want this thing to be crazy fast for the first time that these guys go out and ride it. I just want it to be still pretty quick. I mean, these Hondas are fast enough as it is, so we don't need to go crazy with gearing. But once they get desert tires on it, it'll already be fast. So, stock gearing, full complement of DRW protection, and a Lone Star axle. Had this Lone Star axle, so we went up there, made sure it was straight, brought it to Lone Star. They straightened it if it needed it, new sprocket hub, and this thing is ready to go. Now over here on this side, what you guys see, this is not a Hinson. This is not a stock clutch, although it does use a stock basket. This is the Recluse Z-Start clutch. And what this basically is a bunch of check balls and a whole much more complicated setup here where you can shift the thing into gear and then let go of the clutch, and it won't engage until you give it throttle, and then all these check balls will start sliding out and start engaging the clutch. There's a couple of springs behind here that helps keep this thing separate until you give it gas, and then it closes the clutch and engages, which is actually pretty freaking rad, and I think that's going to work out great for these guys. I've also heard with the Pingle kit that you can basically quick shift the thing, so you can just hit the button and keep shifting, and it interrupts the engine just enough. The ignition, I guess, gets interrupted just long enough that it's like a quick shift. So this is a really sweet addition. They do say, however, to use their gasket with this, so make sure you do put that on there, because the little rubber ring that goes around here, I don't think is thick enough to keep it away from the edge of this. It is a little bit bigger of a setup, but a really nice setup, and it comes with really good directions. Gotta thank Vamp USA for that. Those guys help us get this and the Pingle, and I guess Pingle works hand in hand with Recluse. They always recommend using a Recluse. And now we're gonna mount up our Rossier exhaust. Oh yeah, love this exhaust. Looks good, sounds great, and it's gonna make plenty of power for these guys. Didn't have to go nuts with the exhaust because we only have stock compression piston in there, 12.5 to 1, you know, CP piston, a stock bore, nothing crazy, stage 2 hot cams, so we don't have to make crazy amounts of power. We're trying to leave this engine mostly stock so it stays reliable. That's kind of the point. Now, got the engine set in, got the exhaust bolted up, I've got the engine pretty much set in place, I've got all the bolts in and everything like that, I've torqued down the pivot bolt, but now I'm moving on to all the little details. What you guys haven't seen is me moving around off camera. I've kind of left this thing off while I figured a few things out, because there are so many lines and wires that are going to go on this thing. So I've been kind of figuring out how I want to route them. I've bolted up some brake lines and things like that, but I'm going to take you guys over and show you exactly what I'm talking about, because there's going to be a lot going on with this thing. So over here on the handlebars, as you guys can see, there's a ton of stuff already going on. I don't even have the kill switch on yet. What we have here is the Clake 2 system. You guys have already seen me point this thing out with your clutch lever here, brake lever here. So you have a rear brake, clutch. All this stuff works in conjunction here with this right here. This is the Pingle. So all this is going to help these guys, our buddies here, who are missing legs, shift this thing without having to use their feet, obviously. So Clake system, clutch and brake on the left hand, but it has 3 lines that run off of this thing. I mean, it's everywhere. We've got our slave cylinder for our Magura clutch, and then we've got 2 brake lines, and those all run down here together. I've done a bunch of routing. I've got some, actually some nice Velcro cable ties. I use the soft side to hold all these lines together, stainless steel braided. Here's our Magura master cylinder, or our slave cylinder for our clutch. And then I ran these 2 lines, which run back. We've got one right there. There's the top of our rear master cylinder, and then the other one runs directly to our brake caliper. So what I think happens is everything runs through our master cylinder up here. So this should be our brake master cylinder. And I think there's some kind of proportioning valve or things like that, so you can still use your brake pedal and you can use the brake lever up here. I think that's how that works. I'm not 100%. I really don't know how it works, because someone smarter than me built that thing. But that's what it looks like it's going to do, which is great, because we also have guys that can still use their right foot and they're used to that. So that's going to work out perfect. Over here, we have our shifter for our Pingle shifter, and all of this is going to get wired in. So the next thing I got to do is start running our wiring harness and everything. Already have our CEI box this wire running. I'm gonna have to route all that. But right here, you guys can see the mount for our pingle shifter. I'm actually gonna get a couple washers here because I wanna space these bolts out just a little bit. They're really tight to the valve cover. But this is basically gonna hold the cylinder. In fact, let me show you guys. Oh, if I can get it out of the box. All right, here we go. This is really cool. So right here, what I have is our pingle shift cylinder. So this thing is basically going to mount right in here. And then you can see this bottom end is going to hook up to our shift lever with there's a whole nother bracket that I'll drill in, but it tells you exactly how far I need to measure in from the toe of our shift lever to mount that thing. And then this will clamp right here, and then I get the depth set and then clamp it into place. And then basically this wire right here is going to run up to, there's actually like 2 brains that run this thing. So one will be actuating the shifter, and the other one is actually a ignition interrupter. Yeah, this actually acts like a quick shifter. So you'll see these pingle mounts on a lot of like drag bikes, and a lot of guys using them on Banshees and stuff who are drag racing these things, because it will interrupt the ignition just long enough, just like you're doing a clutchless shift where you just let go of the gas real quick and shift up. That's what this thing's going to do. So I think these guys can shift without ever having to touch the clutch as well, which would be sweet. So this thing's just like a quick shifter and just starts banging through gears, which would be freaking awesome. I'm gonna have to test it out before I hand it off to these guys, but that's gonna be sweet. So without any more talking, let me get into routing some cables and show you guys how all this stuff is gonna lay out. I'm still not sure, but I guess we'll figure it out together. Now that I have the wiring harness pretty much laid in, I've got it all separated, and I've got all the different plug-ins all plugged in. I've got some releasable zip ties, which are cool. I'm gonna move on to a few other little details. So Radical X, I think it's Levi Racing, he sent us a couple things to use on this machine. He sent us a t-shirt as well. I set it down, I forgot where I put it, so it's my bad. I would have been wearing it for you, but thank you very much for sending us things like this. This is just a little dashboard with one of my favorite things here. The kill switch mount is right here. So we'll have a tethered kill switch up on the bars away from all the switches and everything on the left side, so it doesn't get too crowded. This puts it right in the center, so it's easy to get to. I just got to put the tank on to make sure that it clears that. I think it should be fine. It's an IMS tank. I think this will clear it. He also sent us this dual battery box, Radical X, as you guys can see right there. Levi Racing. Gonna be a little bit tight, but that's okay. All right, there's a little locating dowel on the back here, like a little pin, and he's got a recess for that. So now, bam, snap right in there. Nice. I want to make sure this will fit on there, not hit that dash. I might have to do a little clearancing on the corners. So the only issue I'm running into, watch that left side corner over here. As soon as I turn the bars, contacts the tank. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shave these corners here so that we don't rub the tank with the actual mount. Okay, now that we got this thing sitting on all fours, finally got it on its tires, chain is on, sprocket's on, tightened down, got the case saver on. I've already mounted the pingle, just the shifter solenoid and everything. I haven't run all the wires yet, but I kind of got an idea where I'm going. Pretty sweet setup. Now what I got to do is set up the actual shift lever itself. So in the directions, they send plenty of detailed directions. You got to measure about, I think it was 1.75 inches back to the first hole, and then drill 2 3/16 holes into your actual shift lever. So if you got a stock one, cool, go use that. Hopefully you have some extras. I don't want to drill a nice, IMS shifter or something like that. So drill a couple holes, everything is measured out, and then let me show you on here. So you guys can see I've already got the pingle shift solenoid in here. Its depth I don't have quite set yet, but there's a certain spot that they need you to mount this thing right here so that when it hooks up, this has enough play so that it can shift down and pull up and not be all the way maxed out so it can't shift all the way down. You see what I'm saying? So you got to have it like right in the middle, and then this thing has to be set so that when this hooks up, it doesn't, it shouldn't bind, but that's kind of the idea here. Once you have this thing all set up, it shouldn't bind. It should be able to shift all the way down to actually get you into gear, and then shift all the way back up to get you into the next gear. The mount itself is pretty freaking sweet. It's got a swivel on it. That's all in here. I think there's a little bearing in there, so this actually moves around with the shifter so it doesn't get bound up in one spot. And then it comes with the mount that actually drills, or doesn't drill, but it uses, they supply 2 longer Allen head bolts to go right through your engine mount. So make sure you torque down your engine mount before you put this on, otherwise you're gonna have to take it back off to do so. But let's go ahead and put this thing together and then set it on there. Okay, what you guys saw me just do there is I hooked everything up, I got the solenoid in there, and then I just loosened up this bolt, but I had the shifter all the way up like it was shifting into the next gear, and then I let the pingle shifter slide down so that it was fully collapsed like it was pulling up on the shifter. Then I set the depth there and then let the shifter go. So now we should be able to go all the way down and up. Let's put us in neutral here. And that's how you set your depth. That is a horrible looking gasket. That's got to go. Let's look at the accelerator pump as well, just in case that needs a new diaphragm. Oh, well, the diaphragm actually looks good. May need some other gaskets though. Nice, that's actually really clean. Good looking spring too. However, those will probably have to go. Oh yeah, that thing is hard as a rock. All right, it is a different day. It is a much different day. It's confession time. What you guys last saw, me putting the airbox in, was months ago. It is now 2 months down the line. We're deep into December now. That was before going to Little Sahara. But a few problems, a bunch of change parts, stuff I've been waiting on has finally all arrived. We're here. I've been dealing with a no spark issue for the past couple months, and I've been scratching my head. And I, one, found a broken part, but two, made a huge mistake. Big dumb mistake. First thing was, I found that the spark plug boot, if you guys look inside your spark plug boots, yes, you can unscrew them from your spark plug wires. There's like a little, it just looks like a normal roofing screw. All right, it's got threads, and it threads into your wire. Well, that part had broken off inside the boot, and the boot was still stuck on the wire, so I had a broken connection on a spark plug wire, so I was getting no spark there. But also, I had tried 3 different ECUs, or CDIs, sorry. I had 2 CDIs that were the same color, and then there was a third that was a different color. And let me show you what I mean by color. So you guys who are familiar with 06 plus Hondas or 05 Hondas even, the 06s came either e-start or kickstart. You could get a kickstart option up until 2009. Well, the kickstarts come with a blue label on their CDI. The e-starts come with a black and silver label on their CDI. And I had a kickstart only in this plugged in. Well, a little mix up on my part. I had some e-start CDIs, and I had plugged in some e-start CDIs because I have multiple machines laying around here, and I still wasn't getting spark. That was the broken plug boot. Then later I left a kicker only CDI plugged in and was still not getting spark. And I was testing around using a multimeter. I had come to the conclusion that, okay, there's probably a bad ground inside the harness. They've got a new harness now. Then I swapped out stators because I figured, man, I'm not getting a signal from the crank trigger sensor down on the flywheel. So new stator went in. I started chasing all the expensive stuff and forgot to go back and look to see if I had the right CDI plugged in. There were some other things I was looking at, and I just completely whiffed it. Well, lesson learned. Make sure you got the black and silver one. And for a little further reassurance, these blue ones have a K on the label, kicker, for those of you who might get confused like I did. But here we are. I've gone through, I've checked timing, all that stuff's in, enough talking, everything's hooked up. I've got spark again. Oh, thank you. And now we're gonna put a little fuel in it because I actually tried to start it last night, but the fuel that was sitting in here was old and had, yes, gone bad and turned to basically varnish at that point. So went and got some fresh 91. I just wanna use it to start up, but I'd rather use some good fuel when I get this thing all topped off. But what you guys are gonna see is me trying to start this thing for the first time, hopefully runs. That's what I'm hoping for. I've got fuel, I've got air, I have spark now. So hopefully it all works out. Please. And I drained the carburetor, so I'm gonna have to work some fuel back into the carburetor. I do not have the kill switch hooked up yet. I'll get to that. But everything else is there. So let me see if I can get some fuel into the carb. All right, here we are. Watch that accelerator do its magic. Oh, we've got fuel. All right, let's try to start this puppy up. Come on, baby, please work. Oh, first firing, here we go, come on. Oh, come on, baby. Maybe a little more fuel. Maybe he wants a little more idle. Turn up the idle. that's good. I got to make sure that this thing is pulling fuel from the pilot jet, but that is finally running. Oh, what a relief. This thing is a massive undertaking. I got all kinds of parts. I'm sorry, I'm going through my phone, turning the light off. God, that feels so good. You guys have no idea. Putting that thing together and finally getting it fired up feels so good. So let me go through, make sure everything is tidied up and we're actually pulling fuel from where we need to. And maybe I'll turn up the idle just a hair more. We'll see. Hopefully it pulls fuel from the pilot jet here, and it's got to fill all the circuits. We're good to go. Whew. Yes! All right, boys. I have some excellent news. Just put some fresh fuel in because I guess this gas I had in there for 2 months just went to varnish, but key on. Now that I got the engine running, I've put the plastics on, Nerf bars are on, everything's pretty much buttoned down at this point, hood is on. I'll do the full reveal once I get this thing completely finished. However, the next thing I've got to do is figure out this mounting situation for these foot pegs. Now it's going to be really unique because I've gone and grabbed a bunch of these magnets, just found a pack of these at Lowe's and bought like, I don't know, 3 or 4 packs. They come with 4 each, but I'm going to stack them like this. And I went and measured and cut and bent this little thin piece of sheet metal. I think it's just, it's not even steel. I think it's just tin or aluminum finish, whatever it says, but it's like 0.025 gauge. It's real thin. All I needed to do is to slide over the peg and hold these down to the pro peg. Let me show you guys real quick. So the idea here is to get these to sit down in these 2 notches here. Then this is going to slide over the top. And then when I put the actual monster peg on, should be able to bolt it down right over the top of this, pinch everything together, and it will hold those magnets down so that when those guys stick their prosthetics down, it should stick their feet to the peg a little bit better so that their prosthetic isn't just bouncing around the foot peg. It should hopefully hold it in place and keep it from smashing the shifter or something like that, because we have the pingle shifter on there. They should be shifting from up here, but they do have the option. Let's say we have Josh Rodkamp. If he's riding this thing, he can actually shift. So he has the option. He can shift this thing if he wants without using the pingle, and he doesn't got to worry about his boot sticking down to this because he'll just have a rubber sole. So that's the way we're going to go about it. At least that's the idea that I've come up with so far. Maybe we come up with something better. Hopefully we can find some earth magnets, but they may be too strong. I don't know. We're going to start with this. You know, it's really special and rare these days to be trusted to build something truly unique with parts you've never seen before and the help of a lot of companies and sponsors who want to see it come to fruition. Enter Project Cyborg. This is just a 2007 Honda TRX 450ER. This is a project that started, I want to say October of 2023, when it was actually picked up. And it was picked up because a sponsor, FK Rod Ends, helped us get a hold of this thing. And the whole hope was to get it built for our amputee veteran buddies who said, man, I wish I could ride. And Jason just looked at them and said, well, why not? So this big idea happened. Why don't we build something so that these guys can come out and race with us, or we can go and pit for them? So we started hopping on the horn. Jason started ringing up different sponsors and things like that, collecting parts, and asked me if I would be able to build it. Of course, some of the other companies wondered who was going to build it, and he said, well, how about Ian does it over there at Square One Speed? Okay, I'll do it. Heck yeah, I'm excited to, but I have no idea what's going to happen. So somewhere after Vegas to Reno in 2023, Jason went and picked this thing up in Colorado. It was someone else's race rig. I think it was an MX built quad. It had Gibson arms on it and these Elka shocks, and it was in pretty good shape. The engine ran and everything, had a big bore kit on it. So figured, that's a good place to start. Is at a good price. So Jason picked it up. Now, we've built plenty of Hondas before, but we've never built Hondas for amputee veterans. So we had to start looking around for solutions for certain things, like, how are they going to shift? How are they going to brake? What are some things that we can do to accommodate that, but maybe not lose the parts that we already have for someone else who might just hop on there like me? Well, that's where Jason, hopping on the horn with different people, and we started talking to other people who have built things similar to this before. I think Jason even got a hold of Doug Henry. If you guys don't know who Doug Henry is, I implore you, please go and look him up. Really cool guy. We started getting ideas of things to overcome some of these certain challenges these guys are going to have. One of those people that he got a hold of was Moto Z. I think he's all the way up in New York, but he deals with a lot of street bike stuff and like stunt riders, Harley riders, and things like that. That's where the first solution came up. We have the Clake 2 dual control over here on the left side. So what that is a brake and a clutch on the left side. It's a hydraulic clutch running down to a Magura slave cylinder. The whole point of it is we can run the rear brakes through the left hand control over here and still have the clutch, but we also still have the right rear brake pedal, because at least one of those guys will be able to use it, and that's something he's used to, so we'd like to leave it there. So everything runs through that Clake 2 system. Another thing that was given to us, this Terry cable dual gasser. Basically all it is a thumb throttle and a twist in one. Nothing too special. It's just the way it operates is a pin, so that you can use the twist, push the pin back in, and now it's just the thumb throttle. And it's fantastic for us when we've used it, because if you get tired of using the thumb throttle, or you have somebody who's used to a twist throttle, you have your options. Now, another company that hopped on board and helped us out big time was Vamp. These guys are up on the hood. It's the Veteran Adaptive Motorcycle Program. So these guys are no strangers to doing stuff like this. They hopped in and said, hey, here's some parts that we recommend and use, and they work together. And they got us the Pingle shifter. So what it is a speed shifter. Basically, it's a ignition interrupter and a on the bar thumb shifter. It's just got two buttons for up and down, very simple, and then it's got a solenoid on the left side, and everything hooks up through a brain that I have mounted in the airbox, and it interrupts the ignition so you can actually shift while still on the gas. It's paired with a Recluse Z-Start Pro clutch. Those guys paired it together, sent it to us. I was able to put it in. I had to read a lot of instructions because, like I said, there's a lot of parts I've never even seen or heard of before. So I started putting them in. I've heard of Recluse, but I'd never seen how it actually worked with all the steel ball bearings and everything in there and all the weights. The auto clutch is a mint feature on this thing. I'm going to take you guys out in a minute to go test ride this thing, but the way it all works together is basically these guys can just use that little hydraulic clutch. It's just one finger, very simple. And then they can shift using the thumb, or we still have the shift lever down there. If one of those guys wants to use his foot, he can. But you shift it into gear and then you let go of the clutch and it sits and idles. You don't have to touch that clutch ever again until you come to stop and you want to put it back in neutral. That's it. So that Z-Start Pro is a fantastic little piece because we don't want this quad dying on these guys while they're out in the middle of a race, especially if it's a long one. So that was a really cool thing we got to put in there. And then of course we had Dirt Fiend help us out with the graphics, and he hopped in and he made two sets. He made a set for this one, and then its twin is sitting with Jason up in South Dakota right now. Actually, I think it's with Josh. its twin is sitting with Josh Rotkamp, and it has the exact same graphics kit, and it's another Honda TRX 450ER, and all these guys should be able to hopefully ride together on these things. But this graphics kit is truly unique because we tried to take most of the sponsor logos and things like that and not clutter it up. And Sam went through and very detailed ghosted in the names of all of the veterans that committed suicide that are in the Race to Erase 22 book. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it or ever seen the organization Race to Erase 22, but they collect the stories and pictures of service members who've committed suicide, put them in a book, and then they pass them out at races for people to carry with them so that they get to carry them across the finish line that they never got to. So Sam went through and ghosted all of the names in that book into these graphics, and then we put all of the emblems for the services on here. So it's a very special set of graphics. And then of course we did it in the Marine Digi Camo because it matches the desert. So if these guys get lost, should be easy to see. Some of the other companies that have helped out, we had Rossier help me out get the exhaust. DRW sent us the full package of protection. So we've got the belly skid, we've got the rotor guard, we've got the swing arm guard, we've got the sprocket guard. Everything on there is all DRW. He sent us the entire package. So thank you very much to DRW for all that stuff. Now I know it's taken a long time to get to this point, over a year and a half since it's been in my hands, I believe. Maybe a little less than that, but close. Either way, it's taken a long time, but you see it takes forever to get parts. Companies getting things to us, me figuring stuff out, and I rebuilt the entire engine, basically went all stock, got the crank rebuilt, and freshened everything up, new CP piston, went back to stock bore, stock compression, made sure everything was rebuilt completely with fresh gaskets and bearings and everything it needed. That engine runs great, which is all we need right now. It needs to be reliable and run great. It's still electric start because obviously these guys aren't really going to be using a kicker. But between all the parts that I've never touched before, things I had to figure out, I put about $1,000 of my own money into this thing, just making sure we got all the stuff right. I wanted it to be good for these guys, but now it's together. I can't tell you how ecstatic I am that it is finished, and I get to take you guys out for a test ride and show you just how this thing works. So let's go. Oh yeah. All right. Man. Now I have taken this out up the street just to make sure certain things were working, but this should be the first ride out in the dirt I've ever taken this thing on, so pretty pumped about it. Let's see how it starts. Oh, love that. So simple. So when you're getting going on this thing though, you do have to arm the system. That's one thing that I had to read through the directions, because after I got everything together and hooked up and routed the way I wanted, soldered connections, bullet connectors, blah, 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 I went to go shift and I went, nothing's happening with the quad on and everything. Then I read a little bit further. Yep, it was in the directions. You got to arm the system by holding one of these buttons for 5 seconds. Now, watch this. We're going to shift down into first gear. Look how cool that is. Now watch, I'm gonna let go of the clutch and it will sit in idle because of that recluse. Then, just give it a little bit of gas and off we go. How cool is that? Oh, I'm pumped that that works. And then you can just pull in the clutch real quick to slow down. Brakes, rear brakes, another rear brake. Okay, let me get it back in neutral. Bam. That's simple. And that clutch is so light. I love hydraulic clutches. I might actually start messing with those more. All right, now we're just gonna shift it again. Bam. Let go of the clutch, and then we'll get moving. Oh, that is so cool. It's just something so unique. So like I said, we had a lot of sponsors hop on board. One of the biggest being FK Rod Ends. They helped us acquire the machine and gave us a bunch of fresh bearings and things like that to refresh, like these Gibson arms. They aren't being made anymore, but that's what we had. That's what we could afford to rebuild. So they gave us the part numbers. We went and found all the bearings we needed, rebuilt those, got a bunch of other stuff from them. Oh, we got a PRP carrier on here because we've been using them for years now. Love their stuff. David's a good guy, and he's got the most affordable carrier. Now watch, ready? No lift shift. How cool is that? There we go, a little downshift. My foot is nowhere near the shifter right now. Watch this, ready? That is so cool! I'm freaking out a little bit. Vamp, the other company, they're the ones that actually got us the pingle shifter and the recluse clutch, so everything works together nicely. Again, MotoZ, thank you very much for the Clake. That is such a cool unit. Rear brake on it, so these guys can actually not worry about having to, I don't know, shove their prosthetic down on that little tiny brake pedal. I mean, these TRXs are known for how small those little brake pedals are. And then Radical X Racing gave us the little dashboard here, and then there's that second battery box. I figured out where it goes. It goes up here underneath the hood, because this pingle shifter does use battery. It'll suck quite a bit of juice out of the battery, and if you use it a bunch in a short period of time, it might drain the battery and it might not start again. However, if we're doing desert racing on this thing with these guys, these dudes are out there for, you know, an hour at a time between pits. That battery will have plenty of time to charge up using the stator. So the other cool thing is when you shut the machine off, it shuts off the pingle unit. So as soon as that key gets turned to the off position, the whole pingle unit shuts down, and then you'll have to rearm it when you start it up again. That's kind of the only thing. I want to say it's annoying, but it's not, because it's still so cool that you can just hold a button for 5 seconds, and now you can just shift without ever having to use the clutch lever. But yeah. And then of course I threw some Phoenix bars on there because these guys have ridden them before, and I love Phoenix bars, so I just threw my own little touch on there. I got the black bar pad because it matched. Then again, KMW Engineering, thank you for the little gas cap. That thing looks sick on there. Then I threw one of my fuel tanks I had onto this machine. I had an IMS tank sitting around, so we got them a nice 3.8 gallon tank. I wasn't really using it anymore, so no problem. Here we go. Already had a fuel petcock on it. Alright, now I'm going to take my thumb off. I'm going to pull the tiny little pin. I might have to put a little loop on there, but now watch. Something I did notice, the clutch, because it has a bunch of steel ball bearings in it, these recluses, they use those for centrifugal force, and it separates and then pinches the clutches together. It's just, the whole system works like that. But because there's so much in it, it is a little heavier. So the engine lugs just a little bit, but still has plenty of power, baby. This puppy is fast. Something else I should mention is that when you pull in the rear brake, it automatically activates the clutch with it. There's like a little pin right here. Basically, when it pulls in, that pin pushes on the clutch lever as well, and then it activates both, so that you don't run the risk of coming in hot, having to use a rear brake, and then you're like third or fourth gear installing the thing. You've pulled the clutch in. So, oh, this is cool. This thing rips. How cool is that? Oh, got the carb rebuilt and it's tuned well, so it's running good. I want to keep it that way. I am just excited to finally get this thing done, and then we're going to give it to one of them. I'm just extremely happy that we get to do this for somebody like that. And bring more people into desert racing with us, or just quads in general, man. Get more people on them. These things make it so accessible. Oh, I'm over the moon right now, guys. I am over the moon. Let's do that again. I love that. All right, twist throttle. Oh, that's not bad. Because it's the Recluse, look at this. It's not going to stall when we get real low. I'm just idling right now. Now watch. That's the hope, that it should never stall on these guys. Okay, front brake's working. Rear brake. Look at that. Okay, from a dead stop. Oh, I'm in love with this thing. This is by far one of the coolest things I've ever built. Between all the wizardry and stuff going on, this is definitely one of the coolest things I've ever built. Seriously, I'm on cloud 9 right now. This is so freaking cool. Rear brake. Oh, she's a heavy girl. All right, let's get it back into neutral. I love it.